welcome to Dapper Drams, where we taste and review whiskey to try to determine if the dram in our glass is indeed a Dapper Dram. We're here in the laboratory today because we're going to be taking a look at one of the Johnnie Walker Blenders Batch releases, which was an experimental series meant to push the boundaries of typical blending, maturation, and finishing in Scotch whiskey. And I figured, what better place than a lab to review an experiment? Jerry's in the back. He's waiting on a shipment of lab supplies I have coming in. Just some beakers and flasks, pipettes, just some basic stuff that needed restocking. Hopefully it keeps him out of trouble for the day. Today we will be reviewing the Johnnie Walker 10-year-old triple grain American Oak blend. Now I'm sure we're all very familiar with Johnnie Walker and their veritable Crayola box of colored labels, including red label, black label, double black, green, gold, platinum, blue, and all the uber premium variants on the blue label. Ghost and Rare comes to mind. There's one, I think they specifically mentioned Port Ellen. Then of course there are the more esoteric blends, like the Johnnie Walker Plaid label, which was a blend of red, black, gold, and blue. Johnnie Walker Paisley label, which was a collaboration between Johnnie Walker and country singer Brad Paisley. We have, of course, Johnnie Walker Argyle label, released last year to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the beloved character Argyle from Die Hard. Floral label, which was infused with rose, lavender, and cherry blossom petals. Of course, there's Polka Dot label, which was finished in a Dutch clown's shoes. Chevron label, which was matured in a working gas station bathroom. I don't think they sold many of those. And finally, Johnnie Walker Panther label, made with bits of real panther, so you know it's good. So on to the nerdy stuff. This is batch number 3 of the Blenders Batch releases. A 10-year-old that is matured in American oak. It contains 2 malt components and 3 grain components, hence the name triple grain. The malt components are from the Cardew and Mortlock distilleries. Only one of the grain components are actually named, and that's from the now closed Port Dundas distillery. It's also very interesting to note that aside from there being 3 different grain components, it's also 3 different types of grains being used. 1 corn, 1 wheat, and 1 barley. Of course, the single malt components are also made of barley, but that's malted barley, and it's made using a pot still, versus unmalted barley, or sometimes malted barley, but the main difference is it's used in a column still, or a coffee still, or a continuous still, or however you want to name it. It's a different type of still, and that's what makes it a grain whiskey instead of a malt whiskey. Anyway, this is bottled at a very peculiar 41.3% ABV. I'm sure that it's chill filtered, and being a Diageo product, I'm sure it has plenty of colorant added to it. Oh, Jerry's calling. The delivery must be here. Hang on. Yeah, Jerry. Uh-huh. Take all that stuff and put it in the supply closet. Just find room. Yeah, okay. All right. Bye. Okay, then. So let's get on to the review, shall we? Just a wee bit. So on the nose, those grain components are front and center. There's a lot of vanilla, some of that youthful grain harshness. 10 years old is not a long time for a grain whiskey to mature, especially if the casks being used are not top quality, which I think that most of the time they're not. There's a bit of a honey note, which, if I'm not mistaken, comes from the Cardew malt being used. That's typical from their style. Coconut, which is also typical of grain whiskeys. Some light oak. There's a slight bit of sulfur in there, like spent matches. Maybe a puff of smoke with it too. It's a bit waxy, like candle wax. Maybe some of that Mortlock meatiness coming through. If you don't know what the Mortlock meatiness is, pick up some single malt Mortlock and you might find out what I'm talking about. Definitely ginger. Maybe some more of that honey and more of that vanilla. Maybe a very light hint of green grapes. You know, I was expecting much worse from a young grain blend, but this one is really not offensive. It's got that little bit of youthful harshness to it, but it's hardly there at all. It's very light. There's not a lot of complexity to it, but it's serviceable. Let's go on, see what the palate has to offer. Yeah, that youthful grain harshness is there on the palate. More so than it was on the nose, but again, not as bad as I was expecting. I've had some other grain whiskeys in the past that were, I don't remember exactly what age they were. I think one was 9 years old. It was horrible. It was rough, sharp, barely palatable, but this one not so bad. Let's try a little more. Vanilla, coconut, oak, and honey. It's very typical of what you'll find in grain whiskeys, especially if they're aged in American oak, I find. Let's go in for one more, huh? There's a little bit of fruitiness coming out now. Pineapple. It's not very complex. Pineapple with some apricots. Not strong. Mostly just more of that youthful grain feel to it. That pretty much masks everything in here. Keeps everything else from shining. A bare trace of wood smoke and charred oak. Not too strong at all. So overall, a pretty light profile. Nothing to get excited about. Now, it's said that your environment plays a big role in your experience, especially the nosing. The tasting somewhat, but mostly on the nosing. I've given you my observations on this whiskey in this controlled environment, but what about other places? In the spirit of experimentation, let's see what this whiskey has to offer in a few other locations. Yeah, much more earthy and fresh out here. Vegetal. It's like you can just smell the leaves and the dirt. That's really good. That's much improved. Oh, right here, everything just smells right. Everything. Nope, don't like this. Well, now you see when I'm in here, I'm picking up traces of leather. Didn't get that before. Leather and, well, lots of vanilla. Crazy amounts of vanilla. Like, how did I miss that much vanilla? This experiment is over. Well, I guess we've learned that a controlled environment is the best place to enjoy your whiskey since it allows for the most accurate observation of what's in the bottle. So the question of the day is this a dapper dram? Well, no, it's not. It's too light. It's got that youthful grain feel to it. It's not complex. It just doesn't have much going for it. And for that reason, I have to say no. This is not a dapper dram. As far as the score goes, I'm going to have to rank this Johnnie Walker 10-year-old triple grain 11 out of 20 Bunsen burners. As always, check me out on distiller.com, username generously_Paul, where you can read this and all of my reviews. Also, if you enjoyed what you just watched, please hit the subscribe button and give us a like. Oh, Jerry's calling me back. Hopefully he's got everything put away. Let's see. Hey, Jerry. Did you get everything put away? Yeah, it smells funny. What do you mean it smells funny? Well, how'd you get the boxes up there? That shelf was full. You tried to save space by mixing all the bottles of bleach and ammonia together? Jerry, you've just created a cloud of toxic gas. No, I don't care. Get out of there. Look, hit the exhaust fan and get out now. All right, I'm on my way. Okay, bye. Oh boy, I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's bad. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go stop a hazmat situation from getting out of control. We'll see you next time on Dapper Drams.